I shot 1,000 shots in the morning. I'd wake up at 4:59, get to the gym at 5:15. But the part of the story that I've left out until now is that this guy beat me to the gym every day. He was the one that was opening up the gym.
Throwing little pebbles at my window. I'm like scaring me to death because, I'm not thinking right away. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I have someone throwing pebbles at me. And I jump and I look at him. No, that's true.
Talk to me about how hard that was to put on a smile every day while you were still going through some of the hardest times of your life, because no one, if they didn't know, would have known what you were going through because of the strength that you displayed day in, day out.
It was scary hearing it, but I also knew I'm gonna get through this. And I took the attitude from the very beginning is I'm gonna be overly aggressive from day one.
What's up, y'all? It's Drew Hanlon back with another episode of our Unseen Hours podcast. Today I have a special guest, my high school principal, good friend, Dr. Clark. Dr. Clark was the principal that let me in the gym every single morning. A lot of you guys know that I used to shoot 1,000 shots every morning at school, but he was the one that was crazy enough to wake up with me. And I've told the story a million times that, I shot 1,000 shots in the morning. I'd wake up at 4:59, get to the gym at 5:15. But the part of the story that I've left out until now is that this guy beat me to the gym every day. He was the one that was opening up the gym, would make sure the lights were on, would make sure I was taken care of. And while I was in the gym working on my game, he was, in his office working on everything that he could, from the athletic programs to the academics, making sure that he turned Webster Gross High School, which is where I went to high school, where he was a principal at, into the school that it is today. And so, Dr. Clark, I've always known you as my principal and as a good friend and as a supporter of, my basketball career. But I want to get into your journey from coaching and playing to, being a principal. Take me back to you as a kid, because you were like me. We shared something in common. You had a sister that was really, really good at sports. And, my sister, I had a sister that played college basketball. We shared that kind of bond. We both had other sisters, but take me back to when you were younger, growing up and competing. And, everybody that I talked to talked about your competitive nature, your, kind of unmatched, willingness to win anything that you were doing, from little dice games to fishing to basketball. But talk to me about you, kind of your upbringing, your parents being coaches and teachers, and where you got that competitive spirit from.
Well, very lucky to have such a great family. I was the middle child, and my older sister, great person. But my younger one is the one that was overly competitive in sports. And we would compete about everything possible. And from you name every sport, we played it. And when she was in high school, I always told her I was the best shooter out there. And to be honest, she was pretty darn good. Where she came the highest scorer in Northwest Missouri State University, still is, and just unbelievable basketball player. And we kind of taught each other to compete every minute we could. And we both went to Northwest Missouri State University. She played all the time. I played when I could. I played when I needed a three-point shooter, whereas she was just unbelievable. She's the type of player that Drew would like, actually, that would give up a few points every now and then, but could score whenever she wanted. So it was a great family atmosphere to grow up. My dad was Missouri State Hall of Fame as a basketball coach. And just such a great family of five to do everything together all the time.
It's amazing, because when I look at that, I hear, kind of about your upbringing and how you are today. It's a true example of who you are as a person. For people out there that are listening for the first time and hearing your story, everyone said competitive, everyone said genuine, everyone said that you were caring, everybody said that you were tough as nails. And it sounds like it started from the beginning. It's funny, when I started reaching out to people, getting stories from them, I heard, oh man, you got to mention, he was a Nerf football champion at Northwestern, and oh man, there was a time that, we were on a boat fishing and he needed a better angle. And so he jumped over top of the boat and he wanted to be on the side, and he threw the rod in, and sure enough, he fell in after it. And, it was always about winning. And so, not only, were you a principal, you're also a coach, just like your father. Talk to me about your coaching days, and some of the things that, you embodied, because again, everyone said competitive, tough, caring, talk to me about your coaching days.
Well, I coached for 2 years at St. James, Missouri, and 5 years at Rolla High School. Great, great places. I love St. James. I was always thinking I was going to be a graduate assistant for a second year at Northwest Missouri State University. And a position became open for me to be a basketball coach, also a math teacher. Being a math teacher was number one for me. I always loved teaching math, but also the coaching part I loved. And I will tell you, I was there every day, every night, very young. And it's all I did was live in that gym and play with the kids. I was very young. Day and night, we were in the gym playing. So after 2 years, I then switched to Rolla High School. In my opinion, one of the best places around. I love that place. And again, very young, but had some great, great players. And all we did was play basketball all the time and worked and worked and worked. And I had some unbelievable basketball players. And at that point, after 5 years, Dr. Kent King, who is the superintendent, he died of brain cancer, I'm guessing 15 years ago. Great guy, and kind of encouraged me then to think about getting into administration. And even the last 2 years when I was at Rolla, I was still getting into administration. And then after that, I went to Webster Gross High School, and it was hands down the best job I've ever had. I love working there. I give every moment of my time. I loved it. 7 years of being a assistant principal, and then the final 15 as the principal, and working with Pat Voss for 7 years, and she just taught me so many things. But as an assistant principal at the time, it was the best job around. I could help kids constantly, but I also could be with the kids I loved at all times. And that's what taught me, in my opinion, really encouraged me to want to be an administrator and being the principal at Webster Gross High School. What's interesting about some of this is when I started to have cancer issues, there were many jobs I couldn't probably do. I love being a math teacher, but to be honest, I could not be a math teacher shortly after that because my brain wouldn't let me to do those numbers. But as a principal at the school, I feel like I could do the exact same job, do everything I wanted to do, and loved every moment of it.
And I remember those days because, when I was a junior, I think was the first time when we found out that you had cancer. And, I remember how everyone was trying to rally behind you, and yet you kept deflecting everything, saying, guys, I'm okay. Like, you guys need to handle your business. I remember when we went on our playoff run, senior year to win state, and, we had honored you at one of the games. You were coaching one of our games, and you kept deflecting. Everything you wanted to do was just pour into other people. And that's one of the reasons why you and I became so close. Not only because in the mornings, but, I'd constantly go down and just check on you in your office, and I would go down to check on you, yet every single time I walked in your office and I said, hey, how are you doing? No, how are you doing? Hey, I loved watching you play last night. And the school really took off when you were principal. We had football state championships pouring in, basketball state championships. We had soccer, we had baseball rolling, we had so many athletic programs doing well, but then also on the academic side, two things really stood out. A lot of the teachers that worked under you at the time, they said, school scores went crazy for all of the, the standardized testing, but then also that you created the Statesman Center. And the Statesman Center was basically your version of allowing students that didn't learn in a normal classroom setting the opportunity to still get a great education. And that wasn't just, for those who might not learn in those scenarios, but that was also people like Carly Kloss who, wanted to pursue her modeling career but still needed to, pursue her academics. Talk to me about the Statesman Center, because I think that was so innovative. Now there's a lot of schools that, emulate the Statesman Center, but just basically forward thinking to, you know what, not everybody can go to class from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day. And I thought it was genius. And now so many people have followed along, of something that you created.
It was something I was so excited about. And, students learn in different ways. And a lot of students could not go through the process that they were learning at the time. And they were able to, in some cases, go to 2 hours a day, sometimes there all day. You have Carly that was there as often as she could. And it was always interesting because Carly would always, sometimes kids would come to me and says, Carly, she's a supermodel. And I said, no, Carly's just normal. She goes, no, you understand. She's here for like a week or two, and then she's gone for a long time. And then all of a sudden, she's back. And we don't understand, how does she do that? I go, no, it's just Carly. But, and the number of kids that graduated, in my opinion, because of that opportunity. And so it's something I'm extremely proud of overall.
It's amazing because as a principal, as a teacher, as a leader, as a mentor, the thing that you cared about most was always that the people that you were helping and mentoring and leading and coaching, that they ended up doing whatever they wanted to do. And so, if you take it back, I remember as a freshman, I'm considering going to a private school. I'm considering going to Webster. And I didn't know which school I was going to go to at the time. And I don't even know if you remember this, but, Coach Blossom and I had had a bunch of conversations about, potentially coming to Webster Groves. And I go into your office and we sat down, and the overwhelming support that you had for the basketball program, for the academics around the school, and for me as a person. But that was the conversation that we actually had where I said, hey, listen, I normally go up to Webster University and I shoot before school. Is there any way that I could meet you up early? And at that time, I didn't know how early you were there. And you said, hey, there's just too much to do to make sure that this school is running well. What time do you want to get up to the gym? And I said, well, it's, for me, it's a mentality thing. So waking up at 4:59, that means I'm waking up in the 4s instead of the 5s. Is there any way we could meet here around 5:15? And there was no pause. This is me as an 8th grader. It was, I'll be there. Whenever you need me to be there, I'm not going to take away that opportunity from you, because if you want to play college basketball, I'm going to do everything you can. Talk to me about what you remember about those early mornings, because for me, it was so fun, just to, every morning we started off, you and I saw each other every single morning for 4 straight years.
I remember beginning was when, because, often the door was locked at that time. And, I was often there before the custodian was here, but sometimes he'd open at 5:15, sometimes open at 5:30, sometimes he's a morning person anyway, sometimes at 5. But I remember there'd be times and you'd be throwing little pebbles at my window. I'm like scaring me to death because, I'm not thinking right away. At 5 o'clock in the morning, I had someone throwing pebbles at me. And I jump and I look and oh, that's true. So we would talk for a little bit and I'd walk up with you and open everything up. Then next day again, pebbles, like jumping around. I'm not used to that morning. And then after about a week, I went to Drew and said, or I went to the custodian and said, we just got to open this up. So I'm going to go and talk to him, but there's no reason for me to have to get pebbles thrown at me every day. So we just had access where you opened everything up at 5:30 or before you got there. And I usually always walked up to say hi to you and just wanted to say hi to you as you were working out and enjoyed that. But what's really nice about that is for many years after that, what you started, probably not 5 or 5:30 in the morning, but often at 6 or 6:30 or 7, people were in early. And I know they can't do that anymore because the rules are different now. But at the time, it was so nice just to have the place open so people can get in and work out.
Again, I remember those days because I remember even selecting the rocks. That's the funny thing, because I couldn't pick a big rock because I'm throwing them at a glass window. It's not like I'm throwing it at a plexiglass. Right. There was a big bush and there was
throw it over the bush.
Yeah, and I throw it right over the bush and I was just trying to hit the edge. It was almost like that was my first shots of the day, was trying to hit that little pebble perfectly so that, you knew it was a pebble. It wasn't just like a disturbance, but I also didn't want to pick a big rock where, I was worried about breaking something. But you did every single morning. Opened up the gym, would come upstairs, every once in a while, in between my shot, I used to do sets of 100 threes, and I'd throw you the ball and you'd get up some shots. And I remember early on, I didn't know you were a basketball coach and a player And I was like, man, you got a good jump shot for a principal, and you're like, Drew, I played ball. Like I was tough as nails. So, just us forming that bond was so cool to me, just because, most student athletes, they get to know their coaches, but they don't really get to know their administration. And for you to be, not only so helpful, but also so available, and it was for me, it became a friendship. And we were, I was young. I was, 14, 15 years old, and here I am, and we're sitting there having conversations. And, when it was lunchtime, we were having conversations. But I remember we started to get closer when you did find out that you had cancer, because I was like, you know what? He's been there for me. And you've been there for so many other people in this school. I was like, it's time for us to finally be there for you. And, now, you beat cancer, I think, 4 times. Talk about, we talked about earlier how that toughness was instilled in you from the beginning. Every single person from your childhood and from your college days, every single person said the same thing: tough, tough, tough. Talk to me about how hard that was to put on a smile every day while you were still going through some of the hardest times of your life, because no one, if they didn't know, would have known what you were going through because of the strength that you displayed day in, day out.
Well, the positive attitude, knowing I'm going to get through this. And again, I'm going to battle through. And yeah, the first time through, it was scary hearing it, but I also knew I'm going to get through this. And, I also had the best doctors around. And I took the attitude from the very beginning as I'm going to be overly aggressive from day one. And it's made a huge difference. And I'm going to have the same mentality around 4, that I'm going to get through this. Some of the treatments I can't take that I took round 1, round 2, round 3. But I still have the same mentality that I'm going to battle through, get through this, and I will do the best I can do, and what happens, happens.
I remember there was one conversation that we had, and somebody had ticked me off. I forgot who it was. I think it was Miss Seeby, and she said, hey, Drew, like, how much, you and Dr. Clark's relationship means to him. Like, hey, he's had a couple rough days. Like, you might want to go check on him. And so I left her class. She wrote me a pass to go down and see you. And I walk into your office, and you were on a phone call at the time, and so I sat right outside. And I walk in, and you're like, Drew, I sit down. I'm sorry I haven't seen you in a couple days. And you started asking about the basketball team. And I said, Dr. Clark, this is not about the basketball team. How are you? He said, listen, Drew, I'm going to win this battle. I need you to win your battle. We need to win a state championship. And it was so cool to hear that from you, because here we are. It was right before the playoff run. And it was there was no doubt in your mind. You're like, I'm going to win my battle. You need to focus on yours. You haven't won one yet. You lost your freshman, your sophomore, and junior year. You're so close. You got to win one. And for me to hear that level of confidence, but also positivity, like you never got rattled. There was so many times where other people were worried about you, and you kept saying, hey guys, I got this. It goes back to that toughness. It goes back to that competitive spirit. But when I talked to a couple of your former players, they told me about how you coach, and they said you were just as tough and just as competitive. I want to circle back around as a coach, as a principal, watching your school play. What kind of mentality did you have when you were coaching, when you're watching? Like, what is it like as somebody that is super hyper competitive to be on the sideline instead of being in the game, impacting it? Just because I know how much you motivated us by example, but for you to be there actually leading from afar, what is that like for somebody in an administrative position or in that head coaching position?
Well, again, the relationships as a coach was number one. Being there with the kids all the time. I was young, and I probably wasn't ready to be a first year teacher or first year coach to that level. You look at a lot of these coaches teaching at upper level places. I had a lot to learn, but I think I was also surrounded by some great assistant coaches at that time that really helped me all the way to from Coach Dahlcup. Became one of my best friends and worked together all the time. And again, just learning from others, working with others, and just having a great relationship with the students, I think outdoes everybody. And I think together they wanted to work as hard as they could. We had some good players, and with a couple of breaks, I think could have been in the Final Four. And some of those times those breaks don't work very good. We had some great kids that we loved to death and worked as hard as we could to meet our goals for the state championship, even though we didn't do it.
That's so cool. It's cool to me too that you mentioned Coach Dahlcup, just because I got to play for Coach Dahlcup. He was our assistant coach, and it was amazing how many times he would share stories about you. And it was, as a high school student, sometimes you don't get to dig in the past of people that you talk to, and you don't ask those questions. A lot of times it's you guys caring for us and asking questions about how we're doing instead of us asking questions about you, which makes this interview so cool, just because we're diving into your past. One thing that I thought was by far the coolest thing that I heard when talking to some of your friends and family was your wife said that in order for her to be kind of fully moved into your family, she had to make 10 free throws at the wedding. And I thought that was unbelievable, just because I know that anytime that, my sisters, they're both, two of them are married now. We used to always joke around and like, hey, they're athletes, right? They're competitive, right? Because we need that, competitive nature to keep rolling. Talk to me about that kind of story, because I thought that was so cool.
Well, her shooting the 10 free throws, she shot 10 free throws, no doubt about it. I don't know how many she made, but we'll say she made a couple. I don't think she made 10, but she definitely had great effort showing that she's going to shoot 10 free throws. But to do that, we had to first take away all the stuff from the basketball, because the basketball hoop was covered with everything else. So it was fun.
That's awesome. That just shows how much you love the game and how much it means to you. And for me, it was fun because I remember when I was in school, your kids were very, very young. And recently, it was so fun for me to watch your daughter back-to-back Final Fours. She hit some of the biggest shots in the school's women's basketball history. How fun was it to watch her kind of follow that journey on? And I know she was a great golfer as well, but in the basketball side, as a father that saw her kind of follow in your footsteps, what did that mean to you?
It was exciting. I was lucky, and that's the one reason I elected not to retire from being a principal, so I could spend all my time with my kids. And I wanted to spend every minute, and to be honest, every game they were at, both of them, from all their sports. I was at, I think, every game they were at, which was exciting. And seeing Jenna be in the basketball part was a lot of fun. But also as a golf coach, I never missed any of her golf matches, which not always the most exciting sport, but it was still very exciting to see. And Jacob attending every one of his events, and he loved playing baseball and being at every one of his baseball games. With the exception when I was a principal, I couldn't be at all, but I did my best to be out of it. And I look back at Jacob when he was 7 years old, wanting to be principal at Webster Gross High School, and he'd have his little fake walkie-talkie carrying so he could be with me. And even today, he still wants to be a math teacher,
Yep.
which is what I was, a math teacher, at some point even be a principal at a high school. So that's exciting that he has that love. And same with Jenna. They wanted to be with me for every event they could. And that's what's great about Webster Gross High School. You could be at he was with me at every event at all times. And especially Jacob. He would never miss. If I was at school, he was at school, no matter what. Jenna got to a point where she got a little tired of being at all the stuff, so she'd be in my office, sitting there and seeing all the stuff, but not at every game like Jake was at all times.
It was so fun. I remember, Jacob he was so small. Like I pulled out pictures before this, this interview of, us holding the state championship with him, down here, like at my waist level, and taking pictures with him and Coach Dahlcup's son. it's just so fun because I feel like our families are so intertwined and connected just because of the relationship that we have built. But I also feel like, one of the things that you had, growing up, and now that you've instilled, is just such a love for your family. And I feel like that, when you see somebody that is as selfless as you are, always pouring into the students, always pouring into the community, always pouring into the teachers, but more importantly, doing all of that while still always putting, God and your family first. Talk to me about, a lot of people have trouble excelling in both of those categories. They pour all their heart and energy into their work and they don't have time for their family to be present. But for you, it was your family really was so intertwined that, you prioritize what mattered most to you while still making us feel like we were your priority at the same time. Talk to me about that, because I think so many people struggle with that work-life balance, but you're at the gym every morning at 5 a.m. You're at every sporting event at night, yet your kids would say that you're the most valuable dad on planet Earth. Your wife would say you're the most valuable husband. Not many people can figure that out. Talk to me about that.
It's the best job around. And I strongly believe that. It's a great place because you can be with family. The family love being here. We didn't have to go to every school event, or at least try to attend at least as many school events as possible. Didn't have to go to every outside events, but we wanted to be there. We loved it. If there was something going on at the school, we wanted to be there. And it was just, maybe it's crazy, I don't know. We only lived a mile away, so it was close, and that's just kind of our house.
Yeah, I think that's what's so cool about Webster. And I think that, when I was a 7th and 8th grader and I told you about, our meeting and trying to figure out what I wanted to do, go to a private school, go to, Webster Groves, that's the thing that stood out to me, was that the community was so much a part of everything that went on at Webster. When we win a state championship in any sport, they shut down the streets and we get on the fire truck. I mean, it's such a small town feel, but yet you have, still sold out crowds at football games, at basketball games. You have, even regular events that would normally be, a regular Tuesday night. Those are big events for our community. Talk to me about what Webster Groves as a community, not just the high school, but the community, embodied to you.
It's just such a special place. And then everybody in Webster, we're together. We want to do everything together as possible. It's just special.
I think that, when I think back about all the good memories that we had together, I think that, the mornings stand out, obviously, but one thing that really stands out to me was the state championship. And, when we won state, the first person that I wanted to go hug was Coach Blossom, just because, I knew how much time and energy and sacrifices that he had made for, the program, and, Coach Stallcup was right there. But I remember I was trying to find you. I was I've got to go bring this trophy to Dr. Clark, because while you weren't on our coaching staff, I thought that you made such an impact. And that was the first basketball state championship that Coach Blossom had won. Now he had brought in a couple other ones. What was it like for you to kind of, during that fight, you're fighting, battling cancer. What was it like for us going on that same run and finally winning something that we spent so many mornings together in the gym trying to, accomplish? What was it like for you? Because I know how meaningful it was for me to see the smile on Blossom's face, the smile on your face, etc.
Well, for the coaches, knowing this is coming up, and Coach Blossom getting everything ready and thinking, man, we can do this, and your injury comes in right before the Final Four, and I believe it was the night before your practice, and of course I'm thinking, no way, and of course, the coaches, and thinking, oh, are we gonna be okay? And of course, we have you saying, we're gonna be fine, and of course you can't walk, and I'm thinking, he'll get through this. He'll be fine. And yeah, you can hardly walk the night of the game.
Showed up to the game on crutches, yeah.
And then the game after that, you're like, I'm going 100%, baby. And it was, memories for a lifetime. Yeah, just so exciting.
The way I want to finish this up is the only way that I think would be right to finish this up. You know, I told you I dug into the past, and I heard that, you know, you had paid for an ACT score for a student and in exchange for some bread. And, you know, there were multiple times where, you know, you had to wake up on days that you didn't feel like waking up for, you know, for myself. You know, there was even a girl that you had to call in the mornings and make sure she showed up on school on time. Where did you get that selflessness from, where you just wanted to pour into every student? Because I think that, you know, so far we spent so much time talking about your toughness and your competitiveness and your love for basketball and your family. But you did that for every student. It wasn't just, you know, because I was, you know, the best basketball player. It wasn't just because, you know, you believed in. You did that for every student. You wanted, you know, the best student in the school to do well, and you wanted the worst student to do well. Where did you get that from? Because I think that's what makes you such a special person, but also just a principle that, you know, that people dream of having.
Well, to be honest, I really never thought that way. It's just I love this place. I love this school. I've always wanted to do everything I can for kids. So yeah, I don't believe it's the top student or the bottom student. And I guess it's the love for the school. It's Webster Gross High School, and we love this place, and we want to do everything we can to help promote it. So I really don't think it's what I did. I think it's what this community believes in. We want to do everything we can for everybody. I was lucky to be part of it.
Well, I'll tell you this, you know, from me speaking, from so many others speaking, we loved you. You know, when I think about my experience at Webster, I mean, it starts with you at the top, and I mean that. And when I first, you know, decided I was going to do this podcast, I said, you know, there are two guests that are starting out, Coach Blossom and Jon Clark, because, you know, the impact that you had in my life, you know, from opening up a gym and helping out, from supporting, you know, everything that you did throughout my 4 years, but more importantly, just showing me that regardless what life threw at you, that you were going to beat it, you know, with a smile on your face, which is something that, you know, it reminded me of so much of my grandma, who you got to know, you know, while I was there. But both of you guys were just such believers, and you really, you know, embody that, you know, God's got me. Regardless what, you know, life throws at me, you know, I'm going to make it through. And not only am I going to make it through, I'm going to show you guys that, you know, God throws it, the toughest things at its toughest, you know, warriors. And, you know, you are, you know, one of his toughest warriors. But I appreciate everything that you've done for me. I appreciate, you know, for all the student athletes, all the students, all the teachers, all the faculty, every single person, when I talked to them, said, make sure you know how much he means to all of us, how much we love him, how much we, you know, learned from him, we, you know, we felt from him. And just know that my experience at Webster, which I think was, you know, my best 4 years of my life, was unbelievable in large part because of you.
Well, thank you, Drew. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.